Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. We're going to have fun painting this wonderful little windmill that I found. Yeah, it's like, I love the color of the sky. I made mine maybe a little bit more bluish purple. It was more pink in the photograph. I'll give you the link of the photograph in the description box below. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Super fun if you break it down. It doesn't become really difficult. You just take your time, and it's easy doable for anyone. If you're a Patreon member, you get the extended version. If you want to be a Patreon member, click the link in the description box to become a Patreon member, and I'll give you all the details there. But without further ado, let's get painting. Okay, so I'm using bow hang paper, and I just kind of tape down an edge here so I have a nice clean edge when I lift it up, and I use Scotch Magic tape. You have the reference photo and where the supplies are. Click on the reference photo. Like I said, if you're a Patreon member, you get the trace for this. I'm going to actually start to mix up some colors first before we start to do the sky. And I like this photograph because it had some purple tones to it and green. It looks pretty simplistic. And if you are struggling to do some kind of cool, stormy skies, this would be kind of fun to do. In a color, by the way. So I'm using my Princeton 12 Aqua Elite. And loosen up some ultramarine blue deep, just like so, and some bright rose to make that purple. Now yours could be pinky purple, you add more bright rose to it, or magenta, or bluish purple. It's perfectly acceptable to either or. So if I add more pink, I've got that pinky purple, and I like to have both of them kind of close by. And you might want a thicker. So that's very, very loose, very diluted. We call it tea consistency. And a thicker consistency, like more creamier. I'll just add a little bit of the blue and a little bit of this pink again over here. So that's the thicker part. So the area above the grass and all this, we're going to get wet with clean water. You can use the same brush, but I would use you could use a bigger brush. I have a 16 Neptune series round, just to get that all in there. And try not to get the windmill itself. Just getting this all wet. It doesn't matter if you get the windmill, the little things are from the windmill. I know they actually technically name for it. The spindle, whatever things are. But you don't want to get the windmill because it's going to be a lighter color and it can kind of mess it up a little bit. So we're just going to get over here and around where the trees are, just with some nice clean water. Get this nice and wet. And then we're going to tilt this. Oh, I can see there's still some areas that are not wet. You're going to have to look and see if there's still a sheen and everywhere you want to go. So, I'm going to grab that light pinkish purple first. Let that kind of bleed down. Going across this area, and then I'll start to grab the purple one on top of that. Leave little spots in between, and now the thicker one on top. I left a little white here and there, so now it looks cloudier, and you can get some ultramarine blue deep. I'll add a tad of like burnt sienna to get even darker clouds. So an ominous deep cloud up top. Going down, and you can get the more blue here. Woohoo! Kind of little taps. Like this. Now I feel like my pink got a little too crazy pink down here. I might lift a little of this color here and go back and maybe mix the two and add another layer of purple. And you can see it's like lighter here. You can kind of just lift it by taking a damp clean brush and kind of lifting that paint coming down. That's pretty much it. If you want to put a light pink in the bottom, really wasn't any color here except a white color. It's kind of cool though, right? Stormy purple skies. Now, while that's sitting there damp, I'm going to loosen up some more paint here. This area below, we kind of have to mimic it a little bit. We're going to do light pink going towards purple towards this way. And we have these beautiful water lily pads here, and you kind of have to go around them, right? So we need this really loose. And this one, I don't mind going like wet on dry. We can just start with like really light pink here, Go in between some of those lily pads. Really pale pink. Get it wet by adding some more water. Go in between my lily pads. I'm just going to go in between here. And I'll start to add the purple. It's more of a flat area. It's not like the sky so much, so I don't need to have it super wet on wet to bleed that wonderful kind of fun sky. So I'm just going to fill in this in and grabbing that blue color, make that purple tone. You see some of it here. It's not all up in here. Some of it's in there. A little bit here and there. Going to my edge here. Getting a little bit of here. And grabbing my blue again with my pink. Getting a little bit deeper back here. It's much deeper bluish purple, even more blue than purple. So I'm adding some more ultramarine blue deep, kind of back here. Just gotta be careful going around your little lily pads. Like I said. I'm gonna actually make it even a little bit darker. See, there's that purple color. Being very careful. A couple little streaks. Keeping that light pink color though. Going back real quick. Adding that purplish pink right in here. A couple little streaks here, here. Just like that. Going around pads. And I'm going to grab ultramarine blue deep, thicker, go right in here. You can add a little burnt sienna. You can get that mimicking color of the sky, like on top. Just a little bit. It will dry later, so don't freak out if it's a little bit darker. There. And if you want a little more pinker like the photograph, it's up to you. I might grab a little bit more of this bright rose while it's playing. You can wait till it dries and go back in and go over this so you don't end up having like a cauliflower bloom. There, I just want that pinky kind of color. All right, I'm not gonna touch it anymore. We're gonna let it sit and we're gonna have fun painting the rest of it in a bit. We have to let it dry first so we can paint the rest of it. If we start painting it now, it's going to start to bleed and it's going to make a mess. Okay, now that it's dry, I'm going to mix up some greens. I'm using cadmium yellow deep, loosening this up. I always use Prussian blue and some burnt umber for the deeper color. I just mix the two. They have a nice medium green. If you want a brighter Kelly green, I suggest grabbing, peacock blue. These are from Holbein, by the way. I use Holbein paints. My go-to because I love the vibrancy of the colors. So there's no equivalent to any other brand with peacock blue except with Holbein. So peacock blue with yellow makes a nice bright, look at that, Kelly green. And if you add more yellow, you get more of a bright chartreuse green. Like this. Always want to start off light and then build to dark. You can't go verse backwards. So I'm still using my number 12. I'm loosening this up. It's almost like tea consistency. And you see, I'm going to get this a little bit lighter. Tap my paper towel. Right here, this wonderful grass. There are some shades of like a little bit of red or brown, but I'm just going to throw in the green first. And remember, it is going to dry later. Fill this in, and there's some lovely greens over here. It doesn't have to be this super detailed green area. You can add some more yellow to change the green up, maybe a little bit brighter. See, kind of wiggling this color in here. The line. And then the background would be a little bit darker. I just kind of did this one line here. If you want darker green, I have Prussian blue, more burnt umber, and my yellow again, and you get that deeper green. Tap on paper towel if it's excess, if it's dark, and you're gonna kind of throw in a little bit of couple of dark tones in here. And behind this little green patch, you see these little trees. Now I'm just gonna take my brush, the tip of it, or you could take a smaller brush, and I'm just gonna tap a little bit of trees, foliage that you see here, just like that. Some of this looks a little bit more an olive, so I've mixed the green with a little burnt sienna, and I kind of wiggle it, and leaving some space. You got these little trees kind of happening back here. That's all they are, like these little tiny trees. You can kind of see over the grass. Same thing with this one back here. So like I said, I've grabbed some more yellow with a little bit of burnt sienna. And I already have a lot of green in my brush. I'm just going to tap off some of this color. And we kind of start to play with taking the brush and just kind of wiggling it, making these little circular strokes like that. The white kind of goes in between it. Because you see that the wind's blowing, right? It's a storm. So I'm kind of going on this angle like this. Some of it gets a little bit darker. Try like these little circles. But kind of push down here and there. And then you have that kind of wind blowing look. Right? Really kind of simple. Don't make yourself crazy doing all kinds of stuff like that. If you want to take a skinnier brush like a number 8 long round, grab some of that darker color and just kind of take some little lines in this area here so it looks like the grass is blowing. Now the paint should be a little bit thicker. Just kind of leaning them that way. I might grab a little burnt sienna on the tip of my brush and just kind of put some of that a little bit here, there on the bottom of this grass, which you see. Just a little bit. That's all I'm doing. So now the reflection, if you think about it, it's kind of watered down of whatever we see up here and here, right? I'll keep the greens for now. We're gonna do this lovely windmill in a second. But we can take some of the greens we have here with an 8 long round, and we can start to do with some of these reflections where you see them. And see how I'm just wiggling the brush back and forth, just lightly touching the paper. Figuring out where I'm going to put all my little trees. I want to start off light. I'm going to add some darker tones too. I'm kind of wiggling, leaving some spaces. Now I notice in here, it gets almost like brown. Not the same kind of color. We can play with that a little bit. And I'd say it gets a little brown because it's on the purple, but we're going to add some brown tones. Now here this tree comes out. We kind of go like this a little bit and then back down. There is some darker green. Tapping in that color. And some yellow with burnt sienna. So I'm going to grab the yellow with burnt sienna. You get like more of a golden yellow. Kind of put some little dash lines like you see here. It kind of comes out a little bit here. Going back to my green. Remember, we're kind of reflecting this, what we see on this thing. So I'm just going to start with that for now. I'm going to remove some of my greens. Although we can keep the greens and kind of, what I try and do is take the greens that we have and move around the paper, right? So I'm going to go back to my number 12. And you can notice that the lily pads are kind of that bright Kelly-ish green. Might start off with a lighter green first. And again, they don't have to be perfect. Just fill those in. We'll get some more definition with some darker tones in a bit. Just going to fill some of these in. This one's kind of lighter. So I do want to make a nice light green in here. so I can water the color down, and it should dry later. And some of the other ones. This particular lily right here, lily pad. And again, just filling these in with some of the greens that we have. Always start off light. Before you go dark, you will regret it. Trust me. Get that green in there. There's a much lighter green kind of out this way. So I added some yellow to these greens. Just like this. Lily pads. You can make this one a little bit more yellowish, and then we'll add some varying tones of green once it's dry. The ones in the much closer to me are definitely more Kelly green type color. So here's my peacock blue and my yellow, and they're very bright. If you want to tone it down with a little brown, do that. I'm liking the bright color though, against the purples and the pinks. This paper is very porous. It just has a big tooth to it. So you kind of have to use a lot of wet, watery paint with it. Filling in my greens here. All the greens that I see. And I will kind of let this sit, and then we'll come back and add some tones on top of that. You can use some of the darker greens as it's settling in here. All right, so this will be darker. We'll add a little darker tone back in here so it looks a little bit more 3D, like we have these ones in front. Adding that darker tone so you see the difference between the two areas. You always got to squint your eye, and you can look at the depth of the dark colors happening. A lot more browns too. A bit of dark color. Grabbing some of this green. Making that reflection. Okay. Now we do the windmill. I'm going to grab ultramarine blue deep and burnt sienna. A little bit more blue. Now your windmill could have a little more purple tinge to it. Right now I'm just going to keep it a nice light brown. And going to loosen this up. Put the first wash down. Remember, it's just a light color. I'm going to try and see if I can keep my windows white. It's a very light brown. Mine's got a little bit grayer. I'm just filling this in. I could add a little bit more burnt sienna to have that kind of nice orangey brown. Just like right in there. I feel like the middle is a little too dark, so I might clean up my brush and just lift some of the color that I put down. So this little area under here, this bridge, definitely has a little burnt sienna and a little burnt sienna color right here. Just water it down, kind of put this little bridge area coming down here. And underneath and on top, much darker brown. And then we have this like wonderful, kind of like a bright red. And I will use my cadmium red light. It's like the perfect red for this. Just right out of the tube, actually. It's rare that I say that, but sometimes it does kind of look like that. I'm not going to bother putting in the solar panel, or whatever that thing is. Just going to give it a simple red roof. as you can see. And there's a little bit of red kind of happening here. There's a red little band underneath. Now it's a little wet, so that bled a little bit, so it's okay. I can always stop it. All right, we're going to give it a minute. Mix up some brown paint, which is with ultramarine blue deep and burnt sienna. For under this area, it's a nice deep brown. So I'm going to let that sit for a bit. While I'm letting that sit for a bit to dry, we can do the reflection here. So it's more of a burnt sienna than ultramarine blue deep, like a brown. I'm going to add a teeny bit of that. You see I'm slowly adding it. And again, we're going to do these nice little brown reflections, wiggling, leaving some of that purple in there. Now, if you have to do a guide for yourself where it's going to stop, right? It's going to come here, here, and then we get some nice deeper wiggles up here. That just helps you. Where it's going to wiggle, right? Wiggle in here, and then we'll add some deeper color in a bit. So, ultramarine blue deep, burnt sienna, get a really deep dark color that we see kind of wiggling in here. Just like these little wiggles. There's a line here, and that's the reflection of the windmill itself. And it's kind of bleeding slowly in the back here. That's the reflection of the roof and some of the windmill. These guys. I'm going to add a couple little lines you see from the windmills. But that's the reflection. There's a slight little browner reflection on the side here, which we'll put in here. I'm just tapping back on a damp paper towel so it's not super dark. And we see the darker one here. You have to squint your eye and see all the darks and the lights. You can see that there's a line kind of going across here. Right? And that red reflects too. So take a little bit of that red, and you can see the roof in here kind of reflects as well. And there's a little red reflection here. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. We grab some of our greens, and I'm going to grab some browns actually. There's a little browns happening here. And maybe because the water isn't exactly clean, and it has that reflection of the brown. And I'm just taking my brush and doing these little short strokes with some of that brown tone. Going to water this brown down that I mixed up and kind of go over this lovely area as well. And there's a couple little doodads because of the reflection of these and brown. That's our wonderful reflection. Now, you can see some of the brown, even purple, it could even be brownish purple, kind of going these little lines out here. See? Just kind of wiggle some of these. We can do some purple too. Or it's a light green, which makes it brown when you're in the purple. You see that? Just a little bit of lines. Goes a long way. Now that our wonderful windmill is probably dry, we're going to go back with that nice deep brown, mixing it up with those two colors, burnt sienna and ultramarine blue deep. And there's a nice deep color. I'm still using the 12. I find it helps you not be so tight. So here, under, there's a little part of the house. Under this, it's a deeper brown. And same thing with this part of the windmill up here. Nice deep color, almost blackish, so that we have the reflection in the water. Add a little bit more blue to get that tone, and then move up that wonderful windmill part. So simple, just a deep brown. I never like to use black because it's just harsh. That is actually 2 colors. And I'll fill this one in here. Just hold my hand, put my pinky down, use this, and then take the tip and bring that down. Oh yeah. Using the same brush. We have almost like blackish gray inside here of the bridge. My paint needs to be watered down a little bit more because this paper is very, very porous. It likes to soak it up. A couple little doodads here. Now this little bridgey area here, I don't want to paint it because I know a cute little detail of like the flowers that are red. We could take that cadmium red light and just gonna go up here like so. And then I would put the brown underneath it. Fix this up. I would put the brown underneath it. If I have to tap back on a paper towel, I usually do that. Mixing up my brown here. And we could just use like a white gouache, something to do the little white. Doesn't want to do that. Might have to have a little deeper color. Just kind of fill that in. Little doodads here. Boom. It doesn't have to be perfect. You get the idea, right? There are some kind of like funky, I don't know what they are on the side of this windmill that kind of come down. I didn't draw them in, but you just paint them in. So you just kind of go like this. And this thing kind of attaches here. You see the line out here, like so. These are the details you do kind of at the end. Also, we're going to go back to our lily pads, get some deeper color of the green. Same colors we just mixed before, like the Prussian blue, get a little bit deeper. I'm just going to kind of go in here and fill in some dark tones underneath this one so that one pops up a little bit more. You see how that does? And kind of wiggle. And then underneath this one, so this one pops up a little bit more. So that the edge of that one should be lighter. And then this one gets a little bit darker in some areas. Put those little wrinkles in there. Like a little line, and there's a couple little wrinkles like this. I'm going to get this a little bit deeper. Just like so. Just a couple little wrinkles here and there. This one has just a few. They don't have to be perfect. Just doing a slight little tap of color on this side. Just to give it some depth in some of these areas. Now there are like this brown reed. So take those 2 colors again, ultramarine blue deep and burnt sienna. And you can see there's a brown reed coming up here, right? Kind of reflecting, going down here. A little brown in here, a little bit one here. Just kind of throw them in. A little bit one here. Little brown spots. I'm just going to help them look a little bit more realistic. Just kind of wiggling that in there. And if you want to get more deep with the pads, you can. And really just going to go back to this reflection here. Adding a little bit deep more color. A little brighter color here. some of these areas. It's pretty much done, except the super detail on the windmill itself, right? Last thing you would do, you could use, a liner brush would help you get those little details on the windmill. So I'm using burnt sienna and ultramarine blue deep. Let me get these little nets that kind of come up, and just take this little liner brush, whoop, draw them. Kind of come out here like this, and just make them really quick. And this one's coming down like this. These little nets, whatever they have here. There's another little thing coming here. And then I just kind of outline the windows. Little details here. Kind of pull them in. All that good stuff. If you want to add a little shadow again under here. I'll make that a little bit darker and come down a little bit more here using my liner brush. This is super details. But mostly that's it. The last thing I would suggest is a couple little doodads of the purple using a Princeton 8 long round and the pink. So ultramarine blue deep and bright rose. Water that purple down, maybe a little bit more on the blue side. And you can kind of use this for some lovely little lines. Taking my brush, going like this. Those are the finer details. Go back over this section here if you want to get this a little darker. The purple. Or even add some yellow. You can add like little lines, like maybe it's moved. See? Wiggle, wiggle. But really, that's kind of it. That's our reflective, lovely little windmill. If I did anything, I might go back and add a little bit more of these on the side. I think it should be a little bit wider. Wiggle. And a couple little lines coming out. But there you go. Have fun trying to figure out kind of colorful skies. You don't have to keep it all the same. Don't make your life complicated with these pads. Simple colors, simple, greens, and then call it a day. You don't have to sit here and paint every little, what leaf that you see. Make your life simpler. So I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in comments if you like painting like something like this, where it's wet on wet and reflections, and then you get in color, all that good stuff. Find some interesting photographs. Take some interesting photographs, and you just break it down step by step, and it becomes pretty easy. Don't find really complicated subjects, or if these things become really complicated with all the details, take them out. Okay? So I removed the tape and all that good stuff. I add a little gouache and stuff like that. If you're a Patreon member, you get the extended version. But pretty much you guys can see how I did the reflection. It doesn't take much time. You're just doing the simple little wiggles and all that good stuff, and the colors are really fun. I hope you really enjoyed it. Let me know in comments. And if you want the extended version, click the link in the description box to join my Patreon. Get all kinds of goodies there, and I describe all the goodies in each tier. And yeah, it's fun. So, and it helps support me here on YouTube, which I really appreciate. All right, thank you so much. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.